Are you aware of what the top 5 greatest threats to your home here in Colorado are?
Well, a lot of folks who are even native to the area are going to miss some of these. And especially if you are not familiar with Colorado and some of its climate challenges, you may not be aware of these major threats to one of your biggest assets in life. Now, no worries, I am not here to be the negative doomsdayer. I am here to just help you identify what these are and make sure that you are protecting one of the greatest assets you will ever have. I'm Megan Friedel. I'm often joined here by my brother and business partner, Jake Friedel. And together we are your full-time real estate agents, part-time tour guides to all things Denver living. And whether you're looking to move in 9 days or 900 days, we are always excited to hear from you and help you figure out what your best place in Colorado is. So give us a call or a text or an email. All of our information is in the description below. Now, the first threat that I want to talk about is a bit of a hot button topic right now, and that is wildfires. And the reason this is being talked about so much right now in Colorado is we just experienced one of our roughest winters ever. And by roughest, I don't mean that it was freezing cold and we were getting dumped on by snow every day. I mean quite the opposite. We had extremely little snow this year and one of the driest winters we've ever seen in Colorado. And because of that, everybody is really nervous about what that means. Now, yes, did that hurt our skiing industry? Oh, big time. I went skiing one time this year. The amount of rocks and dirt that were on the hills was utterly depressing. And if you're gonna be a camper, you know that you're checking every year to see what the wildfire restrictions are, what the bonfire restrictions are. So if you can have that traditional camping experience where everybody's bringing marshmallows and hot dogs and grilling them on an open fire, or if they're banned, because that does happen. But no, the bigger problem that we see and how it's relevant to you as a homeowner in Colorado has to do with wildfire risks and the potential of losing a home in a wildfire. Now, there is a website where you can go online and see what your wildfire risks are in a certain area, and these risks tend to be the highest out in the mountains. They are not really usually coming to threat for people right around the Denver area, but we did have a recent suburban fire that took out a lot of suburban homes that is kind of changing the way we think about fire risk here in Colorado. Still, if you're around the Denver area, you're pretty safe, but there are some of the suburbs on the outskirts that are at risk, especially in a really tough year like this. So the scariest part of that is going to be, what would happen if I lost my home in a fire? That is, of course, a really scary thought. This also has some more practical day-to-day complications that are more commonly going to impact you. And that is, your insurance, your cost of insurance. If you are in a higher wildfire risk, it's just going to be inflated. And there are certain areas where the way you're maintaining your property and the things you're doing to prevent fires are going to be really relevant. And an insurance company can even come in and say, hey, this is not looking good for your wildfire risk. There are some things that we would want to see if you want us to insure you. And we actually work with a fantastic company that specializes in fire mitigation, knows exactly what these requirements look like, and can really guide you through that process, whether you're selling in one of these high-risk areas or looking to buy in one of these high-risk areas. I highly recommend checking them out. They're called Tree Beavers, and they have been doing this for many, many years and are really great at it. So if you are thinking of making a move to Colorado or within Colorado,
check your wildfire risk online.
Link up with Tree Beavers if you need any kind of fire mitigation, and pray for a lot of snow this spring and definitely a lot of snow next winter. Next up is hail. For number 2, we do get hailstorms in Colorado, and they typically occur in the spring. And they vary in severity and size of the hail, but sometimes they can be softball-sized hail coming at your property and destroying your things. And of course, one of those things is very expensive, and it's your roof. So this really comes into play when you are shopping your insurances. You want to look into what your deductible is going to be, and then you want to make sure that it is a full replacement policy. There are some policies where you still have to pay a deductible, and they are only giving you a partial credit for the roof. So you want to look into that, and you want to make sure that when you are buying your home, that your roof is going to be insurable. If you are going through your inspection and they flag hail damage, it's something that you do want to address through either a certification or a roof replacement, so that when it's time for you to get your insurance company is going to approve that. This can especially cause issues if you're getting a loan on the property. Your lender is not going to loan you on a home where your insurance is not covering the roof. So, hey, and also if you don't have an insurance policy, even more reason to be on top of that, because there isn't a lender there checking and making sure you're doing that. So if you are buying a property in cash, you want to be doing that due diligence yourself and making sure that your insurance company is going to cover your roof for you. And these policies change from year to year. And when you're getting your renewal notice, a lot of us, myself included, will sometimes just renew the policy or let it auto renew without looking into how our coverage is changing. And not only are these policies increasing on you dramatically every year, they're also sometimes decreasing your coverage on you. So it's something that you do want to check every year. Insurance is one of those things where they are not rewarding you for being a loyal customer. In fact, if anything, they are punishing you for being a loyal customer. Insurance is one of those things that you want to shop every year. And then when you do get a hailstorm, this is also something you need to be on top of, because these hailstorms, there's a limited recovery window where you can get that covered by insurance. If you wait too long after the hailstorm to file your claim, your insurance just might deny you. My clients know that every year when they are shopping their insurance, they just come to me first and ask me who is pricing the best right now, because I do this every year, many, many times a year, guide people through getting insurance quotes and picking the best one for them. I've always got several recommendations at the ready, so be sure and reach out to me if that's something you need. And of course, it's not just your roofs that are going to be subject to hail damage. It's your other stuff too. As a Colorado native, I have been a victim of both hail damage to my roof and to my car. When I was 17, my car got head to toe completely destroyed by hail, and I was in the vehicle, which was so scary. Good news is it was fully covered. They totaled my car and sent me a big old check for it, as big as you can for a really crappy Honda Civic with no air conditioning and already significant body damage. But we did get that covered. You can imagine that this is a part of the reason why our car insurance here in Colorado is a little inflated. I do have people a lot of times come from other state and complain about how much their car insurance here is, and that's probably a big reason why. Flipping to the other side of things from hail to number 3, which I'm going to talk about being sun damage. We do get all 4 seasons here, as much as our fall is really way too short, and that's neither here nor there. That's a whole other segment of how I wish we had a longer fall here. But we do have summertime here, and honestly, sun blasts all year round. That is one really special thing about Colorado, is you can have a snowy day where it's the second it stops snowing, the sun is out shining, blasting everything, which is really wonderful, but it also can be kind of hard on our homes. So if you have a deck that is getting really solid sun exposure here, that's going to need to be repainted more often, or if it's like a Trek decks, just know that as much as that is sun resistant, it does put a little bit of an expiration on that thing. Same thing going with the side of your home. If the side of your home is always in direct sun exposure, that side is going to probably need to be repainted before the rest of the home is. So you might only be painting that one side, which, hey, it's nice, at least you're not doing the whole thing, but it might be on a lot shorter timeline than you were originally expecting, just depending on how much coverage is really hitting your home. Now, chalk it up to our atmosphere being a little thinner here, chalk it up to us being a little bit closer to the sun. Whatever it is, I do have a few wild stories of people who have experienced sun damage to the extreme. So I had a client a few years ago who was walking me through her home, and she had a really beautifully updated kitchen, and I asked her when she did it. And she said, well, I kind of had to do it just a few years ago because I had a glass. It was a water pitcher, one of those filtration systems. It was actually plastic. It was sitting out on her counter, and through the glass window coming in, it hit, the sunlight was hitting in just the perfect way that it reflected off of this water purifier and started a kitchen fire. And she was at work and got the call that her house was on fire. Luckily, it was caught very early, and she just had to do a kitchen replacement. But the sun is intense here. Another client of mine that I just helped last year was asking me for window tinting recommendations. And when I asked her why, she said it was because the sun coming in through one of her windows, it was always hitting the same spot for so much of the day. It came through her window and it melted her laptop. So that is just something to be aware of here. The sun is fantastic, but it can be harsh. So you can do window tinting in those certain areas. You can get blinds on windows that are really getting a lot of sun exposure. And then also just expect that those windows that are really getting blasted like that are also going to need a more regular replacement than the rest of the windows in your home. If you have watched my videos before, it's very likely you've heard me talk about number 4 multiple times. And that is the topic of bentonite in our soil. So pretty much everywhere around the US, when you're buying a home, the home's structural foundation is something that you're really keeping top of mind because it's very, very important and very, very costly to fix if there are issues. But here in Colorado, this deserves a specific shout out, and that's because of that culprit bentonite in our soil. We have particularly shifting soils here, and that is because that compound in the soil here, when it gets wet, it expands, and when it dries out, it contracts. And all of that expansion and contraction over time can wreak havoc on your foundation. So when you very first buy a home, what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to be digging out the foundation, compacting the soils. They're supposed to be waiting a certain amount of time before they start building the home. But everyone here is on a rush, just like everywhere else. And not all the time is that proper amount of time given. And so what starts off as a home as being built up with a really nice grade, making sure that anytime water enters your bubble space, it is going away from the home. Over time, that soil starts to shift and it's no longer at this nice grade. It may become flat or even worse, angled down at your home. So what can you do to make sure you are problem solving this ahead of time and preventing any damage as a homeowner? The first thing you should do is when you're buying a home, you should get a home inspection. And if that inspector raises any flags about foundation, structure, soil, call up your good old structural engineer. We have a fantastic inspector that I trust so heavily. He has done an amazing job for our team for many, many years. And we also have a fantastic structural engineer on our team. He is probably the best in Colorado. I don't know if I'm tooting our own horn, but he is really fantastic. And together, this team will make sure that you are protecting your home adequately. The next thing to do is great, just because when you first buy a home, it's got that nice perfect grade and everything is looking good. It doesn't mean that a problem can't develop over time. Like I said, sometimes those soils are shifting and you start to see that evening out or that reversed grading start to happen. So this is something you need to be monitoring consistently over time. You need to make sure that your foundation soils all start to grade away from the home and continuously keep that water away. If you are noticing water coming at your home, that's a big red flag. And if you are ever seeing water in your sump pit, you need to make sure there is a pump actively pumping that out. That is a pit that keeps water away from your foundation. And if it's consistently wet, that can also be a red flag as well. These shifting soils are such a prevalent thing here in Colorado that we even have our own building practice to accompany them. So here in Colorado, when you're building out a home or finishing out a basement, you do a practice called float framing. And it's where the beginning of your wall for any, finishing of the basement or starting when you're building is going to be lifted up off the ground a little bit. And that is to allow for that expansion. So when there is movement in that concrete foundation, it's not pushing up on your structural walls and causing damage to them. You can tell when a DIYer has finished a basement himself and is not familiar with building practices here in Colorado because an inspector will call out when a wall has not been properly float framed and the potential issues that can follow that. All of that movement and shifting can also cause issues for number 5, which is sewer line repair. It's not just the shifting that can cause issues with this. There's also, before the 1980s, we were building a lot of our sewer lines with clay piping, which we thought was really sturdy and great. And we eventually found it actually had some issues where a lot of time tree roots were finding these little offsets or finding these little cracks where they could grow into, create offsets and create breakage and long-term damage. It's also true, though, that even if it's a newer plastic line that's been well maintained, you can have damage to that, whether it was just improperly built or over time there was some kind of offset that was created naturally. These can be very expensive to replace. If they need replacing, you could be looking at $20,000. It all depends on what they need to do to fix it. Is it a full line replacement or a partial line replacement, or can they do some kind of minor repair? And then it's a matter of what are they having to go through in order to replace that. If it's running all along your driveway and that whole entirety needs to be replaced, well, you're going to have to factor in the cost of breaking up the driveway, creating the fix, and then patching up the driveway. So it can definitely get messy. So what can you do as a Colorado homeowner or a potential future Colorado homeowner to prevent these issues? You can, of course, get a proper inspection. That's often the real answer here, isn't it? But here in Colorado, I can't tell you how many times I've worked with clients who previously bought with another agent who did not recommend they get a sewer scope. And this kills me because anytime you are responsible for the line of a home, which is pretty much any single family home and most townhomes where you are responsible for your line all the way from your unit out into the street. And, even if you're not responsible for it, you probably still want to know if something's going on. Anytime you have one of these homes, you should always be getting a sewer scope. And the sewer scope is going to make sure that that line is flowing well, make sure that there are no breaks and there are no offsets. And even if there isn't a blaringly obvious problem with the line at the time, a lot of these older lines, the ones that are made out of the clay built before the 80s, they do have some natural buildup that occurs, but sometimes those lines are still functioning just fine. A remedy for these is to just do an occasional cleaning on them, every 2 or 3 years or however long that the sewer scoper is recommending that you get them done. And why I say that is because there are a lot of times that you're going through an inspection and maybe you get a credit for something or you let go of some items in lieu of bigger items, knowing that you'll handle the rest of them after closing. I recently had an unfortunate experience where I did help a buyer buy where the line was flowing great. It was, there were no offsets or major concerns, but they did recommend that she get it cleaned. There was some buildup shown in the scope and they wanted that addressed. Well, time went on and about a year later, she had still not gotten it cleaned. Unfortunately, this buildup eventually led to a backup into her home. And this is something that can happen. Once that buildup backs into your home, it can flood your basement, and that's exactly what happened to her. She did have to get a lot of parts of her basement, which was already finished and she already felt great about, redone, which is a pretty painful experience. So not just look for the fact that the line is flowing well, that there's no breaks, but if there are recommendations to get that cleaned, you should be staying on top of that and not learn that the hard way. And part of my process now is not only am I holding the hand of my buyers when I help them through the inspection, and not only am I helping them realize what's really important to focus on when they get those reports and all of that really complicated information coming at them, but I also do a follow-up after closing and I say, hey, do you remember those things that you said you would handle? The things that maybe we got you money for, the things that maybe you put on the wayside so we could handle and focus on some of the bigger things. Did you get to those? Do you need a recommendation? So always working to support my people the best way I can and prevent any of these big 5 things coming at them in full force every step that I can prevent them. So those are the top 5 hazards for your house in Colorado that are just not that common in other states, so you probably don't know about. Or just being a homeowner in Colorado does not mean that you're going to know all of these things. There's a lot to know and it gets really complicated. That's why you need a great team on your side walking you through it all, making sure you know the ins and outs, what to do about them, and get you connected with the right people to help you. And that is what I do every day. I've been a full-time real estate agent for many years. My dad has been a full-time real estate agent for many more, and I have been the very, very lucky recipient of all of his contacts that have helped his clients for all those years that are still helping my people today. So if you have more questions about threats to your home or maybe a happier topic, I'm always happy to tackle that with you. Give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, schedule a Zoom call with me. I'm so excited to hear from you and help you get into your home as drama-free, hopefully, as possible.